welcome to the Sports Note for Tuesday, March 7th. I apologize for technical difficulties. This actually should have gone up last night. Again, there was an issue with recording last night to where I ended up having to lose the recording and are redoing it today. And do not adjust your sets. Yes, my jersey is very bright yellow. But we saw something in college basketball, and can you believe Selection Sunday is 5 days away, and there are certain smaller conferences that will be deciding their conference champion in men's college basketball tonight. Some of the conferences have already been determined on the women's bracket, but again, we're seeing some of the things happening tonight, and one of those happens in the smaller one-bid conference Horizon League, where Cleveland State University and Northern Kentucky are going to be vying for the championship and the league's only automatic berth. But one of the teams in the Horizon League that's getting a lot of talk, especially in the last couple of weeks, are the Detroit Mercy Titans. And when I was growing up, Cleveland State had three primary rivals. It was Wisconsin-Milwaukee, now known simply just as Milwaukee, Wisconsin-Green Bay, and Illinois-Chicago. And Detroit Mercy was teetering with that as well. But the Titans, Antoine Davis, had 22 points in their quarterfinal loss to top overall seed Youngstown State. He needed 26. And why do I say he needed 26? Even though the 71-66 score was a 5-point margin. He would have liked to have had 6. He probably would have settled for 4, because 4 would have put him at 3,668 career points in his career, which would have passed Pete Maravich for the most in NCAA history. Maravich's 3667 was achieved, however, in only 83 games, because back during Maravich's playing days, the NCAA had a rule that brand new players, essentially freshmen, could not compete at the varsity level. So there was still a JV or a freshman team at the collegiate level for a while. Maravich also in his 3 years averaged 44.2 points per game at LSU, and the shot clock was not introduced yet. The three-point line certainly had not been introduced yet. Maravich, we all know, unfortunately passed away back in 1988. Excuse me, just after both the shot clock and the three-point line were introduced. The shot clock came into the NCAA in 1985. Maravich had just passed away after a legendary career with the Celtics. The three-point line was introduced in 87 in the NCAA, and this has actually caused the player scoring naturally to inflate over the years. The tournament certainly has expanded. Now you've actually got so many more programs to where those postseason stats add to their statistics. So Davis, even with Detroit Mercy not having made the NCAA tournament since 2012, did get a couple of extra games for those Horizon League games. They actually ended up being selected by the basketball, I believe it was called the basketball tournament. It was not the basketball tournament. It was called the Basketball Classic last year, because because of teams now starting to file back in and fans starting to file back into arenas after the pandemic. And Detroit Mercy was 14-15 last year, and the Basketball Classic was introduced for some of those mid-majors that did not qualify for the NIT or the CBI, and gave them a couple of, an extra tournament to play for, and also was predominantly made up of some of the more historic black colleges and universities, or HBCU. And Detroit Mercy got trounced in the first round by Florida Gulf Coasters, who we remember as Dunk U a few years back with their run in the NCAA tournament. And Davis again finished with 22, won in 26, needed 27 to send the game into overtime, and I don't see a scenario where Davis and Detroit Mercy are going to get into the CBI. And there's still also, I've not seen any sort of confirmation online anywhere that the Basketball Classic is actually going to be held again this year. So it looks like Davis is going to come up 2 offensive possessions short of breaking Maravich's record, despite actually playing that many more games. Davis has got 144 games to Maravich's 83. Now, Davis was the first to really challenge Maravich's record in over 40 years. The next, third place on that list was Freeman Williams with Portland State from 1974 to 78, who played 106 games and finished with 32-49. Keep that in mind. That is 418 points shy of Maravich's record. That's a full season, or at least half a season, considering. You look at the top 25 all-time scorers in NCAA history, only 4 of them are in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and that would naturally be Maravich, that would be Oscar Robertson, that would be Elvin Hayes, and that would be Larry Bird. Robertson's not in the top 10 with that because there's only been 11 players in the history of college basketball that have eclipsed 3,000 points. Hersey Hawkins, Kadron Clark, Harry Kelly, Mike Daum, Dougie McDermott, or we all remember Dougie Buckets at Creighton, Alfonso Ford, Lionel Simmons, Chris Clemens, Freeman Williams, Davis, and of course Maravich. Only 4 of those are in the Naismith Hall of Fame. Only 3 of those 11 players that have scored 3,000 or more are in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, and that would be Simmons, Maravich, and Hawkins. So Davis more than likely is going to be added to that list for getting that close. It's going to be several years until he gets his nomination. There's an outside chance that McDermott may still get into that. But if you look naturally when I'm going over this list, Hawkins finished his college career in '88. Kadron Clark at St. Peter's was 2016. Mike Daum at South Dakota State was 2019. McDermott was 2014. Clemens was 2019 at Campbell, and Davis at 2023. So again, a lot of those are in more recent times where players can really shoot from anywhere on the floor. A 26 or 30 foot three-pointer is not out of the question right now. It's almost secondary nature, and Davis is more than likely going to be playing at the next level. I personally think he's going to be selected in the back half of the lottery, which will be right in the middle of the first round. He could potentially be in the middle of that lottery, which will put him somewhere in the back half of the top 10. But he's definitely going to be an asset for some team with his scoring ability. In terms of whether this translates to the next level, being a 6'1" point guard who is going to be 25 by the time next season already starts. When you look at teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have their entire starting 5 at 26 years of age or less, and are already right now slated to host the first round playoff series in the NBA. We'll actually see if this hurts Davis's stock because of his age and his size at the next level. I don't feel that it should, because of how dynamic a scorer he is, and also he does hold the NCAA record for most three-pointers made, which he broke earlier this year, and he's already put a little bit of distance in that record. So we know that he can shoot. We know he can shoot from anywhere on the floor. We know he can get his shot. He just needed 2 more possessions to get that. Now and Davis has the resume as a walk-on in 2018. He was the Horizon League Freshman of the Year. He was a 2-time and defending Conference Player of the Year. He's more than likely going to get a 3rd which make him the first player in conference history to ever do that. He's a 5-time Horizon League first-team player. But to be able to get into one of these tournaments just to score 4 points and break Maravich's record, I can't be the only one that would think, excuse me, as historic as this would be, to break Maravich's record, does it taint the record? And I'm certainly, you guys know me over the course of the last year, a year plus of doing this, and if also you've been reading the blog for the last 6 years, where I forgot to mention recently, we've hit over 200 blogs recently in the 6 years plus I've been doing this, that I'm certainly not a purist. I subscribe to the philosophy, like the Tool song said, fuck retro anything. You either adapt or die, and the NCAA and the game of basketball has adapted, and records are going to fall. We see records fall in college football constantly. I made mention of it, in the at the very outset of the blog. We've seen 61 home runs eclipsed multiple times, but last year was the first one it was actually done cleanly, when Aaron Judge got 62. Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, all on the juice when that happened. We saw 38 387 eclipsed just last month by a kid from Akron who's now 38 years old, and you could make an argument of the greatest in history. Somebody's eventually in the NFL going to throw 649 passing touchdowns. Who knows if it's in our lifetime. We're also seeing a legend chase down another legend, the greatest of all time, in the run to 894 goals in the NHL. That's going to fall. The other record that legend has will never be broken, as he has more assists than anybody else has total points. But again, a completely different era where scoring was up. Players didn't really lift the puck. The technology wasn't there. The goaltenders weren't as athletic. But we see college basketball advancing. They bring the 3-point line, out, and players are still finding ways to knock that down. They've talked about shortening the shot clock, going to an NBA style shot clock. They've talked about possibly getting the men's and women's game to both have quarters to be able to maybe bring scoring down a little bit. But scorers are still going to get their looks. They're still going to get their points. They're still going to slashers are still going to be able to facilitate. Big men are going to rebound. Big men are going to block shots. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And quite honestly, what tweaks you make is only going to make the game better. So Maravich's record could potentially fall, but I don't see it happening anytime soon, considering with a guy like Davis, if you've got a player who's going to be that great, they're not going to play out all 4 years at the NCAA level to run this record down. So this Maravich right now, even though he's only got that record by 3 points, this could be one of the few last historic records that we're not going to see broken really anytime soon, or even Maravich and Davis, where they're sitting right now, anybody challenge this record anytime soon, because again of that possibility of jumping to the NBA, and now with the collective bargaining agreement that they're going to be negotiating to have the age limit taken out, the one and done rule, even though it might still be there, you're going to have kids going to the G League or the NBA altogether when they're 19, 20 years old. Davis, again at 25, decided to stay, play out his career. Kudos to him. He wanted to win a conference championship. He's not going to get there. He's not going to chase down the unbreakable record, but it's still one of the greatest careers we've ever seen in college basketball. And kudos to him for getting this close. And I'm actually, I don't want to see him get the record at this point, because I would feel it would take back from his legacy. And do we really want to get into the debate of who's the real record holder? Is it still Maravich? Is it Davis? Because technically he's got it, but because of all the parameters that or hoops that actually had to be jumped through for him to get to that mark. So let me know what you guys think. What is the one record that you don't see broken anytime soon? Is there a record that you don't think is ever going to be broken in any sport, whether it's college, pro, whatever? So again, let me know what you guys think. We have a date. We will be joining you on the Wise Guys for the Wisey Awards on the 17th. Yes, it will be St. Patrick's Day. Mike and I will be back with you. We are just about set to go. We are actually dotting I's and crossing T's, getting everything ready. I will be back with you guys probably sometime later on this week. I will certainly, there's a possibility I also may kind of do a quick video early next week breaking down the field of 68 before the games get started next Thursday. And again, if you followed me at all over this time, you know that those 4 games opening a week from today in Dayton, I do not consider that a tournament. The NCAA needs to do away with that, either that or expand the field out further and give these one big conference teams a chance to compete in the big show, which we all know starts with the chaos of 4 games going on at the same time that Thursday of St. Patrick's Day week. So I will see you guys very, very soon. Take care.